là, on est un peu dans les repères historiques et on va voir évidemment ce qu'il en est aujourd'hui et peut-être ce qu'il en adviendra.
So this is the return in the history of the French state, and but this is also a component of the French state today, and we'll see what goes on in the future. But the fact is that this is really a vision of the state as being a lot of red tape, of being very bureaucratic, and of civil servants being these pencil pushers that can even wield the little power that they have in a quite obnoxious way sometimes. But little by little, throughout the 20th century and in the second half of the 20th century, the state moved from being only a coercive state to being what is called the welfare state, the État-providence in French, which would be the state which provides for its constituents. This also meant an evolution of the role of the state, but also of higher official and of the administration.
Qui peut être observé dans le rôle de l'État et aussi donc de ces fonctionnaires et de ces hauts fonctionnaires ou de l'administration en général. Alors, que représentent les fonctionnaires ou l'administration sur l'ensemble de l'activité? On considère qu'il y a environ 2 millions, un peu plus de 2 millions de fonctionnaires d'État. Au total, il y a pour la fonction publique, on est à 5,2 millions, ce qui représente un pourcentage assez important, je pense d'environ 20% disons de l'emploi en France, qui est souvent d'ailleurs critiqué, trop de fonctionnaires, trop d'agents publics.
So the total number of public servants in France is state servants, in France is 2 million. The sum total of public servants in France is 5.2 million, and that represents 20% of all jobs in France, which is quite a big percentage. It's often criticized, and compared to other countries such as Germany or other European countries, and the comparison points out that France has too big a share of its working population in public administration. For Germany, for instance, the figure is quite lower, but this doesn't take into account the fact that military personnel is not included in the figure, and this warps the comparison a little bit. Another European country, which, by the way, is quite successful, is Finland, and it has more of its working population in public administration. The figure stands at 25%. So to give you a few more figures, I'd like to point out that public administration is divided up into 3 different categories in France. There's state public administration, which comprises 50% of all public servants, territorial public service, which is 30%, and hospitalian public service, which is 20%, and that comprises all of the welfare functions of the state, in other words, health and security. And I'd like to point out that it was also in 1946 then that Social Security, the French healthcare system, was created. Excuse me. All of the different teachers and professors are comprised within state public service. I'll go back into this category later, maybe. I will not go into too much detail. However, I do want to tell you about recruitment and mensans in these different positions. But the fact is that in France, all teachers, whether they are in the public or private sector, are included in this figure of of public servants, state public servants. There are other ways of recruiting teachers in France, but whether it's through contracts or private schooling, but they are all comprised in this figure.
Alors, voilà, alors pour les enseignants, c'est en effet, lorsqu'on donne ces chiffres, on inclut les enseignants, les personnels de l'éducation nationale. Alors là, évidemment, il y a énormément de catégories différentes, mais ils font bien partie de la fonction publique d'État. Même si, là, je ne peux pas entrer dans les détails, ce ne serait pas très intéressant de le faire ici, mais on va parler justement du recrutement et revenir sur Mensa aussi. C'est voilà, c'est le principe du concours pour être professeur, qui existe toujours, mais et pour l'administration aussi, comme je l'ai dit au début. Mais il y a évidemment d'autres moyens, des recrutements de type contractuel, il y a aussi de l'enseignement privé, religieux ou non, voilà, avec des personnels aussi particuliers. On les inclut dans ces pourcentages-là. Alors, on pourrait également y ajouter, par exemple, y inclure plutôt les personnels de recherche, puisque la France est dotée de très nombreux instituts nationaux. Je pense au CNRS, où là, on a 12 000 chercheurs qui sont des fonctionnaires, des agents publics. Il s'agit de recherche fondamentale. Là aussi, un souhait. Et ça, la création là remonte avant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Voilà, mettre la France à la pointe de la recherche fondamentale par la création du Centre national de la recherche scientifique. Donc là, on a mais il y a aussi beaucoup d'autres organismes, on ne va pas les citer dans différents domaines.
So there are also many researchers in French, within French public servants. France has many research institutes, the CNRS, for instance, which employs 12,000 high public servants. The CNRS was created before the Second World War, but there are other research institutes in France. Of course, there's INSERM, INRA, the INSEE, which is the National Institute for Statistics and Economic Studies, and has a great role as well. So there's a lot of these researchers in France. Now, I'd like to go back on the recruitment systems for these higher civil servants and this elite, in a sense. Most civil servants are recruited through competitive exams, and these competitive exams were set up for a better equality between candidates. The ENA, the Higher School of Administration, had the objective of democratizing the access to these positions. The objective was to give everybody an equal chance to have these higher positions, these leading positions in administration. The fact is that tests to qualify as a member of Mensa are somewhat the same. They are a little bit like competitive exams. There's a number of questions that people have to solve as quickly as possible, and so it's somewhat the same system, which would lead us to think that Mensans are better qualified, have a better chance of succeeding at administrative competitive exams. The fact is that there is a difference between these two tests, because I know competitive exams in administration because I've been president of jury panels, I've been a member of jury panels, I've been a trainer, and I understand that in addition to intelligence, what comes into play is knowledge and knowledge base. This is what we test candidates on. But there are similarities, and so we could pose the hypothesis that people with a high IQ stand a better chance of being recruited into higher administrative positions.
Faudrait y regarder d'un peu plus près, certainement. C'est peut-être pas toujours le cas, hein, puisque quand même, on a dans les systèmes de concours, domaine que je connais assez bien pour y avoir participé, hein, comme formateur ou comme membre ou pour présider des jurys. On a quand même comment dire, au-delà du potentiel intellectuel, quand même la restitution de connaissances. Donc on n'est pas tout à fait sur le même mode, mais quand même il y a des similitudes qu'on peut observer. Alors, ce qui laisserait supposer aussi que les HQI ou les Mensa seraient tout à fait bien disposés à réussir les différents concours de la fonction publique, hein, dans différents domaines. Alors, à l'inverse, hein, on posait la question justement d'accéder plus facilement. Suppose qu'on accéderait plus facilement au concours, ou on réussirait plus facilement les concours de la fonction publique en étant justement HQI. À l'inverse, on pourrait se dire, fort justement, ceux qui
And it also works the other way. So I've said that people with high IQs may have a better chance of succeeding in these competitive exams, but in the other way, in the other sense, the people who work and who have graduated from one of these higher schools or higher colleges, ENA, for instance, or Polytechnique, or engineer schools, or agronomics, or business administration schools, would probably stand a better chance of qualifying for Mensa, or qualifying as being people with high IQs or high potential. But to get back to the visibility of these people, this is the question under debate, because there's very little visibility, in a sense, of the number of people with high potential in different professions. And I'd like to go back also to what Ariel Ada said in her inaugural speech about whether a high IQ is an asset or a liability. Does this give a plus to people in their profession or not? And so with my subject at hand, does the fact of being a Mensa give you a plus when you go to ENA and vice versa? The fact is that, in my opinion, and according to my experience, this does not necessarily give you a plus. There is no direct correlation between the two. I think the two are maybe independent of each other. The Mensa label does not necessarily mean that you will have a higher position.
Plus pour lui d'être médecin, franchement, la question se pose. Disons qu'à l'heure actuelle, et pour l'expérience que j'en ai, c'est pas forcément un atout supplémentaire, hein, de le label Mensa, hein, plutôt considéré comme quelque chose d'extérieur, hein, n'étant pas forcément pris en compte.